Hello, it's Ruby, and today I'm going to try following a Victorian evening routine. So this evening routine of a middle-class woman begins at 4:30 p.m. when she might be heading back from whatever she's been doing that day. So she might have been visiting friends and leaving calling cards, taking tea, or maybe shopping. And whilst I wasn't doing those things this day, I did make sure I'd finished with everything I was doing that day by 4:30 p.m. so that I could actually do this evening routine. So though she might have left the house for many of the days, one day a week, a lady would be expected to stay at home so she could receive visitors. These visitations would be announced by a calling card, last just 30 minutes, and bonnets and shawls would stay on the entire time. So once back home, I'm inside, I took off my bonnet and outerwear. Victorian women would change multiple times a day into tea dresses, morning dresses. Cynthia Asquith actually wrote that, quote, "A large fraction of our time was spent in changing our clothes." And magazines like Myra's Journal of Dress and Fashion advise women on what to wear for different occasions. I also changed into slippers. I don't have beautiful embroidered ones like the one on the screen. So dinner was really quite early, at about 5 p.m, surprisingly early actually, and I decided to go all out and put together a typical middle-class dinner this evening. It was actually such hard work. I can't believe how much went into preparing just one meal. So there would be 3 courses and the table would be set with candlesticks, fresh flowers, salt and pepper shakers. I set up the dishes as Goodman describes, but without bread rolls, I'm afraid. These would usually have been placed on the napkins, but I completely forgot about them. So they would start with soup, of course, and I followed a pea soup from Mrs. Beaton, and the woman of the house would be the one to serve the soup from the main bowl on the table. An attendant would then hand these out to the rest of the family, though we didn't have an attendant, of course, so my mum just handed these out. Then, when they were finished eating the soup, they would ring a bell on the table so the plates could be taken away. Next, it's main course, which would be meat, potatoes, and a vegetable. So I made a nut roast instead of meat because I'm vegan, of course, and my dad cut and served this since the man of the house would be the one to cut and serve the meat. The potatoes and vegetables would be served in terrines as well. As you can see, the table is also set in the à la Francois style, meaning everything apart from the dessert is laid out on the table at once. So you have the soup and the main already on the table when you sit down. Then, for dessert, we had pancakes. This is a classic dessert according to Mrs. Beaton, but mine did not come out very good. Like, they did not look very good at all, but they were delicious, which is the main thing. So these were traditionally served with jam or lemon and sugar, and they would have been rolled up and then served like that, but we didn't do that this evening. After dinner, it is time for family leisure time. The men of the house might join this, but it was often just the women, and this was a really important part of the day, especially if you had children. Mrs. Beaton writes that, quote, "Where there are young people forming a part of the evening circle, interesting and agreeable pastime should be especially promoted, because she says a mother should, quote, make her children feel that home is the happiest place in the world, so that they value home life as adults." So Mrs. Beaton recommends women doing needlework or chess and backgammon. Reading was also very popular. And she actually says that, quote, "Nothing is more delightful to the feminine members of a family than the reading aloud of some good standard work or amusing publication." So most often, one woman might read aloud from a novel to the rest of the party, and they would be expected to pause and explain parts of what they had just read, reflect on it. But they were few and slight, and she believed them over. Mr. Darnay had kissed her hand fervently and gratefully. And I actually really like this as an idea. It's so much more sociable than just watching a film, and I can imagine it would really bring a family together. For example, if they were, say, reading the weekly instalments of a Dickens novel together as it came out, that would be a hugely bonding experience, especially since you're pausing every now and then to actually reflect on what you're reading. I think I'm going to retire for the night. After retiring for bed, an attendant might help the woman to undress and get ready. I took my hair down from a bun, which was a fashionable style for much of the period, whether low, high or middle depending on when we're talking about. Women were encouraged to brush their hair for 5 minutes every morning and evening, which is actually a long time, but it was quite relaxing. And the reason they would brush their hair for so long is because it was thought that it would spread the natural oils around the hair and keep it clean. You also probably know that many women would curl their hair with rags, so that's what I tried to do here. I tried to do this, but failed miserably. Literally, this went so badly. I thought I'd be able to do it, but as with most types of hairstyling, I was very bad at this. I think I need to work on it a bit. I couldn't get the rags to stay in place, and some of them even snapped. I might have to film a video another time about this once I've actually cracked it, because I love the idea of doing this every night. Now, pretend my hair is tied up in rags here, by the way, but once she's ready, she would get into bed and go to sleep. The candlestick or oil lamp would be put out and the window would be left open to improve ventilation, because Dr. Henry Chavez says it was madness to sleep in a room without ventilation because of Dr. Arnott's concerns about carbon dioxide building up when spaces weren't ventilated. And yes, that brings us to the end of the evening routine. So thank you so much for watching today's video. I know it was quite overdue. I filmed my Victorian morning routine back in January and had meant to upload this in maybe March, but I do hope that you found it interesting. Obviously, like I said on my last video, this is really important to remember. This is only a very tiny subsection of the Victorian public at this time. The vast majority of people were working class and working in terrible conditions in extreme poverty. Victorian London was a hostile place. This is the time of the workhouses, overworking, underpaid, cramped living conditions, cholera epidemics. It was a really hard time to live, and middle class life was very removed from that. There were very clear class boundaries. Thank you again for watching, and I hope that you have a productive week.